Hi, I'm drinking a beer brewed with lobster. It's Oxbow's Saison Dell'aragosta. And this one is essentially a goza brewed with Saison yeast and lobsters. They say mixed fermentation. That just means it's bacteria and yeast. And this one is 4.5% alcohol. It's one that is, I guess, the reviews I've seen are kind of all over the place. Oh, and I have a very appropriate bottle opener. Yeah, they're all over the place. Some people say it's lobstery, some people say it's not. I don't think it's going to be super sour. No one said anything about that, which is good. But this is one of the Oxbow's bottle conditioned beers. And they say, yeah, enjoy within 2 years, but I'm drinking this pretty fresh. It was bottled in April, so a couple months old. And yeah, all their bottle conditioned beers have been pretty good that I've had. And this one is starting to foam up a little bit, actually. Gonna be very, very carbonated, I guess. I don't think there's any Brettanomyces happening in this beer, but we'll see. It's super pale. I don't know exactly how they use the lobsters, if they just throw some into the boil and then they eat the lobster meat afterwards. I'm guessing it's something like that. And it looks actually more like a Berliner Weisse. Gozas sometimes have a little bit of a darker hue, and the head's sticking around pretty well. It doesn't have crazy bubbles going up there. Oh yeah, definitely smell the Saison yeast, and it's got a little bit of a briny, oceany thing happening. I don't know if I smell lobster exactly. I don't know how many lobsters they use or the rate of lobstering. I don't think they like dry lobster it. It just says brewed, yeah, with live made lobster. But it smells just like a nice light tart grisette or low alcohol Saison right now. Definitely not hoppy though, just very, very light phenols and tart pear skin ester things happening. It smells like it's gonna be nice and refreshing, and it's a little bit hot right now, so very, very appropriate. Yeah, quite fruity. And it has, yeah, tastes like the sea, has notes of coriander. I don't say they use coriander, lemony, but it has, yeah, very nice light fruity phenols from the yeast. I don't know, maybe there'll be a lingering lobstery flavor in the corner of my mouth, but I mean, lobster is kind of a subtle flavor. Usually it's covered with, you know, butter or mayonnaise or something like that. My cat's trying to escape. He ruins everything. He can also open up doors himself. But there's a really nice brininess on the corners of the mouth, but I feel like they could have brewed this without the lobster and it still would be pretty much the same thing and a lot cheaper. This beer is probably one of the more expensive beers you'll buy that's not like aged in barrels or has anything really special about it in a beer manner. It's just the fact that they use lobsters, and lobsters are expensive, that makes it pretty expensive. I guess the lingering brininess is very pleasant, and maybe there's a slight sweetness. I noticed that crab, shrimp, and lobster meat has this briny sweetness to it, even though they're like, I don't think there's any actual sugar in the meat, and it mixes with the fruity sweetness of this kind of subtle farmhouse yeast nicely, and the sourness is pretty good, very pleasant. It's not over the top. It's definitely there and lemony, but everything's kind of working together pretty well. It might be the Saison yeast that's the strongest, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of brininess and salt and very fragrant saltiness happening in the corners of my mouth and on my lips, but it's not crazy salty, though that is pretty strong in the finish. And it's not kind of sweaty, and yeah, like I know, like a lot of gozas are, that because your sweat, you know, is kind of salty, and it seems like sometimes the lactic acid combined with the salt and the coriander that's usually in gozas has this kind of thing that reminds you of body sweat a little bit. But this one's much fruitier and lighter and very soft spiciness from the yeast in it. It's very pleasant, but I wouldn't say it's worth $15 a bottle or whatever. And I know this beer is cheaper in Maine, but it's more expensive down here if you want to buy it. I, of course, got it at a discount, but it's still, yeah, a little bit of maybe a slight gimmicky beer. I wish they would just release this as a straight up goza for a bunch cheaper, and I would buy it more then. But it's basically a Saison goza. That's what I'd say. And with like sort of the Saison yeast spiciness filling in for the coriander perfectly well. And this one just has an extra interesting sweet brininess, I think, from the use of the lobster, and yeah, it tastes like a really delicious sort of fleur-de-sel sea salt. Really, really pleasant on the palate and refreshing, and very, very well made. But the lobster is like just maybe giving it a tinge of something special, but not enough to really do that much to make it some kind of mind-blowing lobster beer experience. But it's really good. I feel like it's hard to rate a beer like this because it's kind of a little bit gimmicky, and if I maybe I would rate it lower because the lobster doesn't make it into this crazy intense seafood experience. But it is one of the better like Saison gozas that I've had. If you just look at it like that, I'd give it, you know, 4.25 or something, because it's really pleasant. And there's just a little bit of a bite in the back of the throat from the salt and the acid. But if you're really interested in this, if you like the Saisons and gozas, and you think it's fun to have a beer brewed with lobster, I would give it a try. It's probably still available in some stores in New England. Otherwise, you might just want to pass on it. There's some very subtle shell type thing going on though. The lobster does add something kind of fun to it. It probably will build up more. Maybe by the end of the bottle, I'll be able to taste something really more unique. But it's just a really nice, briny, fresh sea Saison goza. Goodbye.